Hello, 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 and welcome to our podcast, JTP. You leave me hanging? JTP.
JTP.
JTP. Yeah, we'll take that from the Goldbergs. It works in this situation.
This is exciting. So episode number 2 of It's Hard to Human, here we are. And today we are talking about
how to stay calm and grounded when the collective is in upheaval. Story of our life for the last, 2 years? 2.5?
Welcome to the pandemic.
2 years. Yeah. The endemic.
The endemic. And you guys, it's really timely that we're talking about this right now because it is March 24th.
Yeah.
And I believe it all started in this time, March something of 2020.
Correct. Yeah, like on my birthday. Yeah. March 23rd, 2020.
We are exactly 2 years later.
Birthday.
Yeah. And that was a little bit traumatic for me because we had people over on like the Saturday before. Life was completely normal. Everybody was hanging out. And then the Monday shows up for my actual birthday and my friends are in the driveway holding up signs and they're all standing more than 6 feet apart because all of a sudden the world had changed so dramatically that the people I trusted on Saturday, I couldn't now trust on Monday.
Isn't that bizarre?
And honestly, I cried every day for a week.
Oh.
Like that's how, that's where the fear went in, right? People were saying, oh, you know what? Your friends that you see right now, like count all your friends, by the end of the year, probably, some of those people are not going to be with you any longer.
Yeah.
Like that's how dramatic it was, right?
How the narrative was. Yep, for sure.
Yep. Chances are you're not going to make it to the end of the year. You're going to die.
Yeah.
Yeah. Way to throw that out there into the universe.
Have you done anything to process those emotions?
Yeah, I've been working on some of that for sure. But yeah, obviously it's still on the forefront. It's still there. I mean, also disclaimer, super emotional being here, cry at the drop of a hat, can't contain any of this. It just comes out of my eyes.
We love you.
Thank you. And I appreciate that. And, working to hold on to that part of me that just cries, that's just the way it is. I'll just keep talking through the tears and try and get my words out. But yeah, processing all of that, there was a point where I had to tell myself, you're not going to die. Stop thinking about it this way. Your friends aren't going to die. Well, maybe they are. All of these loved ones, we'll see at the end of the year who makes it through, who doesn't make it through. And do you want to completely live like this forever in this complete and utter sadness? Or do you get off the couch and just try and live? Unfortunately for me, it's also been a ton of back and forth with those thoughts. It's been definitely 2 years of struggle for me. And I'm honestly still struggling with it. It's not gone. There's definitely so much sadness around it.
Yeah.
And then to watch family dynamics completely change, friends completely change.
That's probably been the biggest shocker for me in all of it is how the dynamics between friendships and family have shifted so drastically and how people have been so, what's the right word to use that's kind, plugged into the narrative of what is happening and have lost sight of sovereignty, have lost sight of self, have lost sight of knowing what is right for them. And instead of going, hey, you know what, it's okay. We have this whole conversation of, did you get vaxxed or not vaxxed, right? It's okay if you chose to get vaxxed, and it's equally okay if people chose to not be vaccinated. But for some reason, it's just put us against each other. And, friendships are lost over this. Families are not getting together over this kind of stuff because exactly like you're saying, there's a narrative that is there and people are choosing to believe one way or the other. And everyone's just so fear stricken, right? Everybody is just terrified of, oh, I can't go around you. You might give me COVID, right? And so full disclosure, we've chosen to not be vaccinated in our house. And it's not because we don't believe in science. It's not because we're anti-vax. It's not because we don't believe there's a pandemic. We've had COVID. We just had the Omicron go through our house. We are well aware that this is a real thing happening, but we're also trusting that our body is healthy and that we're not within that percentile that is going to die from having COVID. And if you actually crunch the numbers and if you're actually looking at everything, are there people dying from it? Of course there are. This happens with the flu every single year, but we don't talk about it as much because this is new, right? And so for us, when this pandemic hit, it was very different because we didn't look at it like, okay, now we're going without, now we're struggling. It's, we have 2 young kids. We need to, at this time, we didn't know any information about the pandemic. We needed to survive the pandemic. How do we get through, and how do we make our kids' lives uninterrupted as possible? Right. And get through this. And so, my son's birthday is March 28th. So 5 days before his, same thing. We had to cancel his birthday party. We had to cancel things. I'm like, okay, well, what do we do to make this fun so that my 4-year-old is feeling celebrated and loved and happy? Or 5, I guess he was 5 actually when it hit. How do we make him feel celebrated, happy, and loved? And what do? We cleared out our dining room in our tiny little condo, and we set up a big tent in there, and we had a camping party, and we made it as fun as we could make it. And so it's interesting to me how you say, for you, it's like you go without, and you've kind of gone back and forth through the narrative of the pandemic. And for me, I was like, this is an opportunity to go inside and do the work and put everything else on hold and really start this journey of who am I? What do I need? What do I want? How do I get my healthiest, my strongest, and my best? So, we adopted a plant-based diet just before the pandemic hit. We began working out every single day. We still took ourselves out in nature, but we went and hiked up mountains so that we weren't around people, because you're right. You don't know. Are our friends going to make it? Are we going to get it? Are we going to survive it? In the beginning, you don't know any of this, but as the pandemic continued, we continued to live our life with a greater balance than we had originally had. It gave us a stronger union in our family. We realized what is important. So we went from being just, Wes, myself, and our 2 kids to let's purchase a house and get the in-laws in here. So if this shit continues, at least we still have family dynamic there, right? So it really allowed us to stop and look at our life as a whole and go, where have we been out of balance? How do we restore what's important? And how do we continue forward and continue staying grounded and calm, and more importantly, kind towards everybody's different choices? Because at the end of the day, whether you buy into the belief that you need to be vaccinated because it's going to save you, or you buy into the belief that you don't need it because you're healthy and strong, we still all need to be coming together and going, okay, whatever you choose is your reality, and your reality is right for you. And that's okay. Right? But somewhere along the way, we're losing that. And so the upheaval continues. And now it's not the pandemic. Now it's the fucking war. Right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Which, whether it's a pandemic, a war, or just shit in your life, because before the pandemic, I had plenty of crap that made me feel the ways you guys are talking about, even though it wasn't necessarily globally recognized situations, things in my own life. And so that's really the topic. How do you stay true to yourself when shit's hitting the fan?
When there's all the external noise. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, for me, the pandemic was actually like when it hit, totally awesome. Like it was awesome for me. I was going out for walks, and I mean, it didn't really change my life. I was already trying to work from home, be a digital CEO. Mm-hmm. So that, and then I found more people coming online. So I was like, well, this is amazing, right? Now everyone's going to come online. This is exactly, totally awesome. And I already, in the world around me, wasn't doing a lot of, partying or events or whatever, because I had already been so focused on my growth. Mm-hmm. It's had a couple tragedies, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And family dynamic just like you guys have touched on, I would say that's probably been my biggest change, is the relationship with the people in my family, even though I live nowhere near them. So it's all been just correspondence on the phone and stuff. But yeah, interesting. I would say, like you, I went, Tiana, with a really what can I do about me approach. Mm-hmm. And I would say that's what gave me the most, because you can't control the world and you can't control all the things, even though it seems that the mind always wants to do that. When things go crazy, it likes to control everything else outside of it.
Yeah.
Right. But really just coming back to self has been the greatest gift for me.
And that's the funniest thing, right? It's like never has there been a greater disconnection for a lot of people, self and to other people, because it's been forced upon us. But there's also been this opportunity to have a greater connection with ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. And to really get to know ourselves and to really unplug. Like, I know for my own self, and maybe it sounds ignorant, I had to stop listening to the news. I had to stop listening to the narrative. I had to stop watching it, because this is how they get people to come in, is they fearmonger. right? And everything is energy, everything's a frequency, everything is a vibration. So they are vibrating out a certain level of sound and sight that draws you in and makes you go, oh my God, okay, what next? What next? What next? And it's getting all your hormones going, all your adrenaline's going, your cortisols are going, and you're getting freaked right the frig out because you're listening to this and going, okay, well, this has to be the truth. Look how many people are dying here and how many people are getting it here. And I mean, look at this, the Omicron surge, right? I mean, this is perfect example. Vaxxed or not vaxxed, it doesn't matter. You're getting it. It's happening. And there's still the conversation of, oh, this person's vaxxed, so they'll be okay. So like we had Omicron in our house. Then my sister, who's pregnant, due to have a baby within the next 3 weeks, got Omicron. She's also not vaccinated. And for us in our houses, it was like 48 hours of feeling pretty crummy. And then it's just tiredness. My brother, who is vaccinated and chose that route for himself, now has Omicron and he's feeling like shit. So it doesn't matter if you're vaccinated or not. It's how are you connected? Now, if there was no pandemic, if there was nothing needing to be vaccinated or not vaccinated, and you look at the lifestyles we live, out of the three of us, I would say myself is more grounded and connected in that I practice self-care. I exercise, I eat a plant-based diet, I get out in nature on the regular, I journal when I'm stressed, I'll meditate if I'm extra stressed. I do things to really be in my human. My sister is a mix between. So she'll go out for the walks and she'll get out in nature and she cooks and bakes everything. And so she eats a pretty healthy diet and her husband take decent care. And then there's our brother, who's the bachelor, who lives in the city, who, you know, has a lifestyle of partying and indulging in food and isn't the healthiest weight. And there's things that are stacked against him, right? So is it a matter of being vaxxed or unvaxxed? No, it's what is your health to begin with? Where are you at and what levels of care are you giving yourself on a day-to-day basis? And I think that COVID is really giving us an opportunity to look at that stuff too, right? Like, how am I caring for myself? How am I caring for my human? I mean, our mentor, Caitlin, talks of this all the time, right? Like, how are we caring for our terrain? What things are you doing or practicing to make sure that you are keeping your homeostasis in a really, really good level so that you are calm and grounded on the day-to-day basis, so that when this stuff comes in, it's a lot easier to look at it and go, okay, how do I need to pivot to navigate this? And how do I pivot again to navigate this? And she's bang on in that, right?
You know what's funny? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, so right away, I posted a thing about vitamin D and the post got taken down, like it was censored. And it's interesting because, yeah, there were reports right away saying like vitamin D and vitamin C are going to be helpful for a lot of people. Vitamin D, a lot of people are vitamin D deficient, especially during the winter.
Yeah.
And what really was upsetting was that even though the province that we live in is considered to be one of the healthiest out there and most active, where was the whole, like, why didn't they talk about addressing our diet? Why didn't they talk about going outside? Like, there was a point where she didn't even want us to go outside to be around people. We could go outside for a little bit. I'm not going to stop going outside. Outside is one part for me. I think also in this whole time in the last 2 years, being an empath has really sucked, because even if I'm feeling that I was grounded or feeling good, I quickly get swept away into not feeling good and not feeling good for a long times, that I can't get myself out of it, because all of a sudden the collective energy out there is really, really sad about something. I joke and I call it a disturbance in the force. But there'll be days where I wake up and I'm like, I just can't even function today. I can't do anything. I can't even get myself to go do the dishes. Like, I'm just going to sit on my phone and be addicted, because we all know that scrolling on our phone is all those dopamine hits. So I'd rather take my hits there because I'm feeling so collectively lousy. So yeah, how do you keep calm and grounded in those kinds of situations, right? Like,
so what do you do in those situations? So what's to say that?
And I'm still working through that. Oh, and you know what? I have the best advice for everybody else. I can tell everyone else how to keep calm and grounded in those situations, but then to turn around and practice on myself is a whole different story.
But here's the thing. Okay. So on those days you wake up and you're like, I just want to lay in bed and I want to look at my phone. What's wrong with that?
Oh, nothing. There's self-care, right?
That's self-care. Exactly. But this is the thing too, like now being plugged in.
Self-caring for like a whole week. Like,
okay, so
and now I haven't showered for a whole week. Like, and then it goes into depression. Like, it really just like slips in there, and then all of a sudden you're listening to all those silly voices in your head saying like, why bother? Why? Yeah.
This is true. It can be a slippery slope for people, for sure, to just kind of fall into those practices of the Netflix and the chill and the do nothing. That said, I don't think there's anything wrong with taking a day or two and doing Netflix and chill and, just being numb, right? I mean, for me, this Christmas, I felt like that. I was really overwhelmed, and I had been go, 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 and we had stayed really well through the pandemic, and kept moving our body and kept doing things. And then we bought a house last year and we moved in. And so our attention and direction pivoted and it shifted, and it was more about getting to know our neighbors and finding this community and this place for our children, and making all these changes that we stopped doing all of our really, really great self-care practices. So we went from eating the whole food vegan into, enjoying some of the processed indulgences that were a little quicker, or, we weren't working out every single day. It was a couple times a week now. And we weren't getting out in nature for our walks because our focus had just changed. And I mean, it's pivoted again, and that's great. But I did get to a point at Christmas where I was starting to feel that depression. And I was like, okay, now Omicron is surging, and I was watching the news a little bit more, and I wasn't practicing my self-care, and I wasn't eating my whole food, and I wasn't doing the things that I knew made me feel strong and healthy and lit up and in control. And so I got to a point where I was like, you know what? I need a day to shut off. I don't want the responsibility of being a mom. And I told my husband this. I'm like, same thing, being empathetic and sensitive. I could feel the collective energy. I could feel the stress. I could feel the narrative starting to change yet again, and people plugging into that. And I was just like, I'm fucking done. And I did. I needed a day where I could do something. And did I honor that? No. And then what happened? Bam, I got hit with the flu for 2 weeks, and I was forced to lay down for 5 days that I couldn't get out of bed. And I laid there and I watched my Netflix, and I put on a funny show and put the good stuff in my body. And it was kind of this aha moment of, if I'm going to plug in and if I'm going to listen to the news, that's fine. If I'm going to listen to people's conversations, that's fine. If I'm going to be empathetic and allow myself to tap into the collective energy, that's fine. But I have to make myself a priority first. And I have to be following all my self-care routines every single day, unapologetically, because they make me feel good, because they make me feel strong. They make me a calmer human, a kinder human, a better mom. I have more energy. You feel better, right? And so it has to be those things. So there's nothing wrong with going, okay, the energy of the world today is really shitty, and I can feel that as a sensitive. I need a day to lay on my bed and do Netflix. Okay, that's fine. If you're choosing a day of laying out, make sure you get in maybe a little extra water and a little extra healthy food to balance you, so that when you do sleep that night, maybe the next morning you can get up and, start your day with a bath, or you can, start your day with, no, you know what? I need to just get out in the trees and I need to breathe, or whatever it is. It's going back to, what do I need right now to feel good? How do I give myself that self-care? Because it can be that slippery slope downward of, okay, I'm just going to totally unplug from everything. But then you do start walking that line of going into depression or going into that dark space, especially here in BC, right? Like SAD, that disorder, seasonal affective disorder, or whatever it's called, like that is such an issue in itself for so many people, regardless of a pandemic or not, because of vitamin D.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally. And I think you guys are bringing up the most important thing, and that I want people to take away, is checking in with self.
Yeah.
Whether you watch the news or you don't watch the news, or you're feeling great or you're not feeling great, everything, we have such a tendency as humans to keep rolling with whatever's showing up, instead of stopping and going, okay, that's what showed up. Now what? What am I going to do with that? Do I need to move it? Do I want it? Am I going to do this? Am I not going to do this? And then when we get into the, okay, it's Netflix a chill day, we can stay at that too. And then the next day we go, well, let's just do that again. Whoa, stop and check in. What is really what I'm going to do? What is really what's going on here? And getting into that, I mean, talking about observer state, right? That does seem to be the ultimate helper in most situations, is the pull back and look, the check, the hey, what is up? Do I need to watch the news today? I feel really drawn to it, but does that mean it's right? Or is that just my automatic response? Is that just what I'm used to doing? Maybe I need to cut it back to once a week, or maybe I need to not do it at all. But then if I not do it at all, I still need to check in the next day. Am I still not doing it at all?
Yeah.
Or, or check in a week later and go, wait, am I still not watching the news, or do I need to watch it? And not make these conclusive, this is the way it's always going to be, which is funny, right? Because we're biologically designed to try and stay the same all the time.
Creatures of habit.
So it's this fun little dance you have to do with yourself to go, okay, like, what now, and keep checking in and deciding, and not really, almost not setting anything in stone, which for a lot of people is then going to ruffle the feathers, because your uncertainty gauge goes up and it goes, wait a minute. So you want me to just live in this, complete uncertainty all the time, always checking in with self? And I'm going to go, yeah, kind of.
I love that actually. It's true. It's the observer and it's being present. And that's what that is, right? So just to go on that and give an example, Wes and I choose to not drink. And I mean, we used to be active pot smokers and we used to drink daily. And that was something we enjoyed. And especially in the pandemic, I mean, that was our one really unhealthy habit we had is, hey, it's 1 o'clock. Let's have a beer with lunch, and you do that. And then, hey, it's happy hour. Let's have some more. And I think a lot of us were guilty of it. And then we quit. And then I got to this point where I was like, in my head, well, what about, okay, if I don't drink now, but I allow myself to drink on weekends. And then I started making it this thing where it was like, no, Tiana, you can't have it. And then I wanted it. And it was this whole mind fuckery that started happening with it. And funny enough, this morning, Wes and I were talking about that. And he goes, with the weather being nicer, I felt like having a beer. And I'm like, well, have a beer. And he's like, well, I don't know. And I said, well, what, if you're choosing to not drink every day, that's fine. But if you come to a day where you're like, hey, I feel like having a beer, what is wrong with you having a beer? Why do you need to make it something? Why give it power?
Yeah.
Because, okay, so today you don't want a beer, but tomorrow you might. And that's okay. And I said, that's how I look at it. Like, I don't want to be drinking every day. I know that for myself because I feel really, really good being sober. But if I go to a concert or we go out on a date night or something happens and I feel like having a drink, I'm not going to deny myself of that. I will approach it in that moment. And then I'm going to be the observer and I'm going to check in and I'm going to go, hey, body, is this what you want right now? No? Okay, cool. Yeah, sure. Here, have one. Right? Like, why put these expectations? I think that that's another disservice that happens, that we've been conditioned to believe that we have to live in the future and we're always attaining something, which then makes us turn around and then live in our past of, oh, remember this time when, and remember when this happened. And then you start longing for that. And then you start getting in the mind fuck of depression or the anxiety of what could potentially happen, and you're rolling forward instead of going, okay, in this moment, I'm fully engaged with 2 really good friends having great conversation. This moment feels good. Do I feel like a drink? No, I don't. Do I feel like getting outside? Well, sunny. Yeah. You know what? I'm done. I'm probably going to go out and take a walk. Why not? Right. I mean, and even at that, I might finish in a half an hour and go, nah, I don't feel like going outside. I'm going to do my Netflix. And that is okay. Whatever I choose in each now moment is okay. It's about being present. And like Patricia's saying, observing you're human and what you need and what you want. And then also listening to those quiet voices inside, not the loud ones that are nattering the bullshit at you. It's what is the quiet voice saying? Because that's your knowing. That's your higher self, right?
Yeah. I spend a lot of time prioritizing other people instead of myself.
Yeah.
So in order to have that gratification of feeling wanted and feeling worthy and doing all those things for other people. And then when it comes to doing things for myself, I'm like, I'll do it later because now I'm tired. But I've found that for years I've been exhausted all the time. So when I say I'll do it later, when I feel better is not coming.
Yeah.
It's like I just keep putting it off and putting it off and putting it off.
And what's the thing that would make you feel better?
I like to sleep.
It's doing the thing that you wanted to do and stop putting everybody else first.
Yeah, it is.
And and
it is, right? It's like, I do absolutely love working in like doing that healing with other people, right? That makes me feel better. It makes me feel wonderful. But, same balance. I need to find that balance and still work on the time for myself. Cause it does feel like, the kids are asking me to do this, or my husband's asking me to do this, and I'm doing that for them, and I'm doing this for them, or then I'm just cleaning the house. That takes a phenomenal amount of time, right? All those kinds of things just to keep everybody feeling, good and safe and loved, and cooking for them. all those kinds of things. But then I also find that all of these activities are incredibly draining too.
Yeah.
So yeah. And it's finding the balance within there too,
Mm-hmm.
to do that self-care and then do the things that I want to do for other people.
What's crazy is when we put ourselves 100% first and we really cultivate that self-trust, the way those people show up to ask you for things also changes.
Absolutely.
They no longer are asking beyond what you can deliver. They'll no longer suck the energy out of you with all those tasks. It just won't happen because you won't be coming from that same place. And they will learn from the way you treat yourself how to treat you.
That's
subtly.
Right.
Those subtle little things will happen when you start putting you first. Your family will start putting you first, right? And you'll be putting them first in a whole different way. And it'll change the dynamic in one that you can't even fathom until you do it, until you experience it.
I completely agree with that, because that's been the story for us too. And that was another thing that came with the pandemic, right? Was me turning around and finding my voice and saying to my husband, listen, I know I've signed on for the role of being a stay-at-home mom, taking care of the house and doing this stuff. But you get to leave the house. You get an hour to yourself in the morning, an hour to yourself in the evening. You get to have your lunches made for you, your breakfast, your dinner, your laundry is done, the house is clean, the things are done. I'm so busy taking care of everybody else, and who's taking care of me? Because exactly like you, Jennifer, it was, I'm doing all this stuff. And then at the end of the day, I'm too fucking tired to do anything for myself. And it was a really bad cycle and showing the imbalances in our life. And so I had to show up for myself exactly like Patricia said, putting myself first, making myself a priority so that I had the energy. It was filling my own cup first. So I actually had something to give from instead of pouring from an empty reserve and saying like, you know, this is what I need. And now what has happened? My husband helps with laundry. My husband will handle meals a couple days a week. My husband understands what it is to clean a big, huge house and how much energy and effort it takes. He understands what it is to take the kids out so I can now step into my ventures and things that I want to be doing. Because as mom, you don't shut off.
No.
Do not shut off. It's 24 hours. The kid wakes up throwing up in the middle of the night. It's not typically daddy getting up, cleaning sheets and floors and everything else, right? Like, this is just the reality of it. So you have to do those things for yourself so that you're not too tired. And it's a vicious cycle that I think so many of us go through and are plugged into. And it's also programming that has been put upon us. You have to do this as this role. It's unacceptable and it's selfish for you to take time for care. And that's just not the truth. That is burning people out and making them sick.
How many of us were told to be a good girl?
All the time.
Right? How many times do you hear that? Be a good girl. Do this. Do it like this. Do it like this. And so now you got to come back to self and you go, you know what? How do I want to be? Who do I want to be? And what is that going to look like in my life? And sometimes, you know, we think we want to give these things to people, like the making the lunches and the cleaning the house and doing all the things because that's the job you signed up for. You're like, yeah, I'm the stay-at-home mom or I'm whatever. So it comes with all these things. But what if it didn't come with all those things, right? What if it looked completely different? And as a society, we get so into these different ways it has to be, we forget that anything is possible, including how you behave in a pandemic, including how you behave when things, you know, when nobody agrees with you, including, you know, you get to create it however you want, but we forget that and we get in these roles. And it all, again, comes back to checking in with what truly lights you up and then doing the things it takes to make that instead of fitting into roles that are exhausting us.
Yeah.
You know? And seeing where, you know, do you have to hire a cleaner or does everyone have to make their own lunch no matter what that looks like? Or, you know, what different things do we have to do to make the changes? And it's scary, you know, when you think about some of that and really changing it up and what will that look like in my life? Or, you know, I had to be a certain way. And I think this is what it really kind of comes back to is growing up, you're used to, I have to be this certain way to receive the love from other people. I have to be this certain way to fit in the different circles I'm in. I have to be this certain way. And so we forget or maybe even never learn who we really are at the core and the different things that really will light us up and all the different possibilities out there. We almost shut down some of our imagination and some of our what is possible. And so when we're faced with things like a pandemic, I think that's why so many people lose their shit, because now it's either come back to self or be in complete turmoil all the time.
And most people don't even understand that they can come back to self. And something pinged for me as you were saying all of that is like, most people who feel they have to do it all and they have to be the superstar and they've got to wear all the hats are needing control. Like they're a control freak in some way, right? Mm-hmm. Has to be done a certain way. It has to be done my way. It has to be perfect. It has to. And I think that society has been, because we've been controlled and we've been told that things have to go a certain way, we've lost the ability to realize that we only have control over ourselves. And if you're making choices and controlling yourself, the way you need the self-care, what you want to eat, how you move your body, the job that you do, whether you go to school post-secondary or you don't, whether you choose to be a stay-at-home mom or not, or whether the dad stays at home, whatever it is, whatever choice you make that is in your control and coming from your power and your truth is a way to have control. And when you can do that, when you understand that you have that control for yourself, you let go of all the control for the other things. Mm-hmm. Somebody once said to me, when Wes and I first got married, I was complaining about the fact that I was doing everything. And I was bitching about the way Wes folded towels of all things. And I was like, he doesn't fold them right. And this woman said to me, maybe it's not the way that you would do it, but it doesn't make it wrong. And it was such an aha for me that I was like, oh my God, that's so, like, why is my way of folding the towels the only way the towels can be folded? If he folds the towels his way, I don't have to do it. That's fucking great. Right? And I did in that moment, I let go of that. And I was like, well, why do I have to control how the towels are folded? Like, who cares? When I do the laundry and I do the towels, I'll fold them the way that I want them folded. And aside from that, it's a job I don't have to do. And so I get to let go of that control piece because it doesn't fucking matter. It does not matter. In that moment, when he's folding towels, I can choose to take an Epsom salts bath. I can choose to do a face mask. I can choose to go out and get my nails done. I can choose something else for myself. Like, we always have choice in what we control and choice in how we react to things, right? And at the end of the day, I think that's the biggest piece of empowerment people could take, is that you have control over you, regardless of any external noise and what you've been bought to believe.
Mm-hmm. And even though someone else says something's really bad and someone else says something's really scary, and, you know, what they're saying is true, you don't have to be traumatized by it. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to hurt you just because it's bad. It doesn't have to. But so then, you know, what do we give our listeners and our viewers as what's the first step in all of that? I mean, the three of us have a lot of tools when it comes to connecting self and being able to get in observer mode. And I try and think of myself even, you know, 5 to 10 years ago when I had very few tools to work with myself and was very disconnected from who I am. And I think, what would I tell her right now?
Yeah.
What can she do right now in the moment to go, okay, I'm ready to put down some of the fuckery. Where do I start?
Connect with your breath. That would be my first thing. I know that sounds really funny, but you was saying that going back, 10 years. And I think of the woman I was at that time and how scared I was. Like, I was living with really, really severe anxiety, debilitating. I would watch my heart jump out of my chest. I was in and out of the doctor for stuff because I thought I was dying. Like, that's how my anxiety presented. And the gift I gave myself in my own awareness, in my own awakening, or whatever you want to call it, is, how are you breathing? And every single time it was shallow and it was frenetic and it was all over the place. And it's the reason my heart was beating hard and my tummy was out of control and things were spinning, because it was. And so for me, it was connecting with my breath and going, okay, how do I calm down my human vessel so that I can allow the chatter to be quiet for a second and I can actually start to hear the truth and get into that place of the observer. Mm-hmm. So connect with breath. Right. And the breath that I like to do was a square breathing, which is super, super popular. I think a lot of people nowadays probably know this one, but if you don't, it's breathing in for a count of 4, holding for 4, exhale over 4, hold for 4, breathe in for 4. And you just keep doing that. And eventually you'll get to this place where all the chatter just goes quiet for a second. And you'll realize, wow, I'm actually breathing really deep from my belly and not in, like, almost like a hyperventilating. So that would be my first piece. is
Cool.
feel your breath and connect with it.
Love that. And I love that you said breath, not meditation.
Yeah.
That's beautiful, because so many people have a lot of projections and expectations on what meditation has to be. And upon hearing that, I know this was how it was for me until I learned the truth of meditation, but I was so freaked out by something I wanted to do, but it was too impossible, So I love that you invited. It's just breath, you guys. Just breathe. Just spend some moments counting those breaths, just the way she said, and it is phenomenal. Mine is probably just see, hear, know, recognize, whatever that looks like for you, your thoughts. Just start seeing those thoughts. About, 20, little more than 20 years ago, I had my first session with a psychiatrist. I was super sick. And the thing that they gave me, the biggest aha that gave me healing at that time, was just knowing that the thoughts and feelings in my brain are just chemicals, and that I just have automatic reactions to things. It doesn't make them true. And if I could see them and just start asking myself questions about it, instead of just taking everything as truth that comes into my brain, there was a lot of freedom in that. And that's how you start practicing being the observer. Just recognize, oh shit, I just called myself an asshole. Oh, interesting. Just start recognizing, oh, wow, I feel crappy, and the thought in my head right now is XYZ. Just recognize that association and those automatic thoughts as they come up. And as you start to recognize them and say, okay, interesting, it will change. Just that in itself is a great. But that with the breathing. And then, Jennifer, what do you got?
I grounded. I really feel it when I'm not grounded, and just being in this body in today, and not having the anxiety of tomorrow or yesterday, like being grounded in today, and like physically being in this body and going outside and putting my feet. My favorite is putting my feet in the sand, like walking in the water, but even just getting out and having those bare feet on the grass, any dirt, anything out there, that is a huge connection. And there's lots of times where I can't even remind myself to do that, but when I do, that's when I'm feeling the best.
Do you have any way you practice other than walking to get grounded?
I do my little kind of grounding thing where I take that silver cord.
Oh yeah. So I used to and still sometimes do, but it's more automatic for me now. But before, when I was going through the anxiety and I'd do the breathing, the next step that I would do was the grounding as well. I totally agree with you on that. And for me, I'd always see roots, like tree roots, how I'd imagine they look like under the dirt, coming from the soles of my feet and actually going downwards and grabbing onto the core of the earth and going, okay, my human vessel is here in this moment. And then I'd come up to the five senses. What do I see? What do I hear? What do I smell? What can I touch? What can I taste? What's tangible, to bring myself into this physical present moment, so I'm not thinking of the past and I'm not fearing the future. And then exactly like you say too, Patricia, listening to those thoughts, because your ego is a fucking monster and will give you a lot of bullshit that's not your truth. It's just not. Even though
we can get into whose truth it is another day.
And I definitely do the root one. The root visualization is really good. And putting those roots down and then bringing all that energy up to the top of my head and then out my hands. But one that I do quickly, and I do for lots of different things, is one that Dennis taught me. And it's taking that silver thread, and it starts at the tip of your head, and it's going to line up through your spine and go out through your sacrum and into the earth. And it's quick. You just go whoosh.
I like that.
And that's it. And what he also taught me, which is phenomenal, I absolutely loves this. When I go driving in the car, especially at winter, you ground your tires. So you're just like in your car and you just go psh, 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 and all your tires are grounded.
Cool.
Right? And it gives me that sense of just a little bit more safety, because now I'm grounded. My car is grounded. I'm in control. Yeah. And that was a phenomenal tip.
That's cool. I'll use that.
I totally love that one. That's my favorite one. And often I'm doing multiple grounding techniques during the day, especially if it's a collectively hard day, because you can definitely get thrown off by a little comment or something you see or something you hear on the radio, and then you're just off again. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for bringing that up, because it could be 1,000 times a day at first, or always. Like, there's nothing wrong with continuously checking in with self and going, whoa, Let's ground.
Well, and I think part of grounding for me is giving myself tasks during a day. Like to not just leave my day to be open, kind of see what happens. I need to give myself a list of things to do in order to have that accomplishment and that feeling of, that I've done something and to be proud of myself. Like the floor. That was a good day. That was a good 2 days.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah. And remembering to reward ourselves when we do have lists and stuff. For those list lovers out there, if you're giving yourself to-do list, at the end of the day, when the list is done, even if one thing on the list or whatever, really being proud of that.
Yeah.
Right?
Celebrate. Stop and breathe, right? It's like, what is that saying? Take in the roses, or stop and smell the roses.
Stop and smell the roses.
Yeah.
Well, that's the other thing too, is like we are taught to believe that we need to keep going. And if you have done something that's a big feat, like celebrate that. Absolutely celebrate that and celebrate yourself and take a moment to breathe.
Well, what's interesting about breathing, I don't know for you guys, but I hold my breath when I'm in pain.
Interesting. I'm very good at breathing through pain.
I hold my breath.
That's why I rock.
I have to be told to breathe. And then I have to tell myself, if I'm in pain, I need to remember to breathe. And same with any kind of pain, any sort of anxiety pain, any pain, physical pain mostly, I will hold my breath.
I stop breathing when I'm crying. If I'm sad, if I'm super sad and I'm crying, I stop breathing. My girlfriend is constantly like, okay, breathe, take a breath. Okay, right, breathe. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's when I hold my breath. Physical pain, I keep breathing, but emotional pain, I hold the breath.
The only time I find myself not breathing is if I'm watching a movie and someone is drowning. And then I'm like, I'm all panicked and I have to be like, breathe, you're not drowning, you're watching. It's okay.
101 problems of the empath.
That's when I decide that they're already dead. Oh, I had to breathe. They're definitely
done.
Yeah, connect to breath. That will always bring you back to yourself. It will always bring you back to your present moment.
This is like, how they do fire drills and they teach you growing up, stop, drop, and roll.
Yeah.
Well, we're giving you the stop, drop, and roll for surviving humaning.
Yeah. Stop
and breathe, ground, drop, right? And roll, get them thoughts out.
Woo! I love it.
Right?
Drop and ground and drop your roots.
Yeah.
Roll out that shitty ass thought, you guys, because you don't. Yeah. It's not yours.
Yeah, absolutely.
You are enough.
Yeah. It's crazy.
I love it. Good one. Well, people, like, subscribe, share, get us out there. We have to say it. It's corny, but it does need to happen to get the algorithms of the YouTube going. We're also starting up a Facebook page. We will pin the link once it's ready to go. And if you're drawn to any of us, you can reach our contact links on the top bar. You can with Patricia, Jennifer,
and in the description.
And in the description.
And in the description.
But most important, we hope that this is something good for you. And if you have a topic you'd like us to cover, you can reach us at itshardtohuman@gmail.com.
Yes. Because it's hard to human. We're giving you all the ways to make it easy.
And fun.
Life is fun.
Despite the
really fun.
Life is really fun. And it's great over on this side. It is.
Yeah.
It is. Awesome. Well, thanks, viewers. We love you.